Welcome to Reframe the podcast, helping you reframe your thought patterns, habits and mindsets to create the life that you want to lead. In today's episode, I am chatting with Carly Lightbown, who is a weight and size inclusive personal trainer and founder of A Body to Live For, an inclusive community celebrating what our bodies can do. Carly shares openly about her recovery from disordered eating and how her relationship with exercise changed over time and led her to adopt a health-centric approach to her work. We also chat about how health at every size and intuitive eating and the non-diet approach are often misinterpreted within the fitness industry. And we talk about the importance of recognising and being open about our privilege as straight-sized practitioners in this space. Today's chat is honest, funny, and very real. It was an honour to share this space with Carly. Hi, Carly, and welcome to Reframe the podcast on this incredibly hot, melting day. So I am particularly grateful for you making time for me when you could be outside doing anything else other than this. So yeah, I'm very, very grateful for your time today. I wondered whether or not you could start by just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit more about who you are and what it is that you do.
Of course. Thank you for having me. So I'm Carly, as you said, and I'm a personal trainer here in Truro. So in Cornwall, I should say. So I've got my studio here. I'm in the studio now and it's very warm. And I'm a health first personal trainer. So I think it's a little bit of a different thing in the fitness industry at the minute. But more of us are starting to talk about it. And the way I train is just a little bit different. So it's all about putting health before weight loss and the conventional side of personal training.
Fantastic. It sounds right up my street, Carly. So as a non-diet professional, I'm the same. It's all about being health-centric and not weight-centric. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you came to that then? Have you always been in the fitness industry? What was your own journey to come to where you are now?
So I've been in the fitness industry for about 5 years now. And no, I didn't start off like this. So I'd had my own challenges with my relationship with food and my body. And it meant that, it gave me the passion to become a PT. I wanted, it got me into fitness. I wanted to do it. But I think I tried to go at it with a more gentler approach. So I tried to do, I still did body transformations. I still did weight loss. And I still weighed my clients, all that kind of thing when I initially started. But I tried to go about it a little bit more gently and said, you don't need to count calories and that kind of thing. But looking back, I realised that it doesn't work. You either kind of have to go one way or the other. So yeah, it was quite a long, slow progression to get to where I am now. So I've been working this way for about 2 years. And I realised that I think it was just seeing that I had, my clients were unhappy and they were lacking in confidence, and I was seeing that they were making such great progress in things like the strength and mobility and fitness, and they were so focused on what the bodies look like and the fact that they'd not, they'd maybe gained a pound or something. So yeah, I started to read more about the body positivity movement and about health at every size, and I just realised that it was the route that I wanted to go down, and I've never looked back. It's been a good change, definitely.
No, I'm so pleased to have more voices. As you said, there's kind of like a movement, a swelling, isn't there, within the industry towards this more so. But I think the key word you said there was you recognised that your clients were unhappy.
Yeah, so not like really miserable, but they weren't seeing the progress. They were still unhappy in the bodies. I just felt like there was something missing. And because I was a mobile PT at the time, so I noticed that I'd turn up to the house and I'd bring like my little scales and my tape measure once every 6 weeks or so to do like a weigh-in with them. And I could see they were nervous and they were anxious about it. And if they hadn't lost weight, they were kind of making excuses. They didn't need to do that. And I just kind of thought in the end, why am I putting this pressure on them? It's not good for them. It's not good for the health to have that. And I think when I look back, I only really did it because it was the norm. It's the way that you taught in PT school that goals are very much aesthetics based, and I don't think I ever really considered that there was another option, that there was another way to work.
Yeah, and as you said, I think when you describe your clients, you know, you turn up there for the check-in, the weigh-in, and that kind of that fear, that apprehension, because we're taught by diet culture, aren't we, that, well, actually, it's all your responsibility. It's just down to willpower. You know,
absolutely.
You didn't work out hard enough, or you know, you just didn't get the calories in, calories out right, or are you tracking? You know, all of this language makes you feel like actually, and it will go thinking about all the other things.
Absolutely.
Our genetics, our relationship with food, our lifestyle, stimulus, you know, the environments we find ourselves in, if you're working shifts, you know, all of these things.
Before, and I think because I came from such a privileged position, and, you know, I'm in a small body, naturally slim, and I just never even considered that. Never even considered that people, you know, if we did all eat the same, and exercise the same, we would all look completely different. And I think that I had that outlook that, oh, well, if I can do it, if I can maintain, you know, a moderately lean body, then why can't everyone else? But yeah, I've seen the light. It's different now.
It's the same in nutrition and dietetics, though. You know, I think the emphasis historically has been the same. You know, when I trained, it was, well, you calculate BMI and you do waist to hip ratio, and you and you weigh, and there was no emphasis on the other elements of progress, as you mentioned. You know, strength, sleep gets better. They're managing the stress better because they've got a means of getting it out when they're working out. You know, they feel stronger. You know, all of these benefits are just unless it's on the. And we also know that scales are a bit of nonsense, aren't they, half the time? You know,
absolutely.
Changes. It's just, I mean, Jimmy always says that to me. He's like, you know, you don't worry about the scales, that's a poo. It could be the day.
It's so true. It can literally change in an hour what you weigh. And when I was obsessing over food, I remember I was weighing myself like, oh God, like 4 or 5 times a day, you know, watching it fluctuate and driving myself mad about it. And it just doesn't make any sense. But like you say, it's what diet culture has us believe, doesn't it? That your weight is attached to your worth, and it definitely shouldn't be that way.
But I think you also acknowledge something there that's really important. You know, you and I are both straight-sized people. And sometimes I'm really aware of it. I'm aware with it with clients that sometimes working in the non-diet space or the intuitive eating space, I think, is it easy for me to say?
Yeah, definitely. And I always say that to clients as well. I say I recognise, you know, when it's clients in larger bodies, I say I recognise that it's a lot, you know, it's very easy for me to sit here and say, just, you know, you need to kind of accept the body that you're in, the size that you are, because I can walk into any shop and get whatever, you know, clothes will fit me. People don't look at me, you know, and assume that I'm unhealthy. I don't have any trouble at doctor's appointments, that kind of thing. I actually went to the hospital the other day because I'd injured my foot and I had to have an x-ray. And the lady said to me, she was a lovely lady, and I mean, it usually comes from a well-meaning place, but she said, oh, you know, because I was in my shorts and t-shirt, you look like you're healthy, you know, you look like you're active. And I thought, do I? You know, why are we judging people just because I'm in a smaller body? She assumed that I was, you know, some fitness fanatic, which I'm definitely not, you know, even though I'm a PT. But I thought it just goes to show how, you know, you're judged immediately as soon as you walk into a room on your health status.
And it's so rooted in thin equals hell. And you know, I had shared some of my own background. I had anorexia. I had bulimia that evolved into anorexia through my mid into my early 20s. I'm in my 40s now. But there was a period where I lost weight, and I was before I began looking really ill. I was thin, and I was complimented on it, but no one knew actually I was abusing laxatives at the time. It's crazy.
And I find it, you know, even myself, I have to stop myself sometimes from making comments on people's. I think I'm better at making comments on people's bodies now, but on their appearance, you know, I try and stop myself when someone walks into a room of saying, oh, you look amazing, you know, because it just instantly draws the attention to what we look like. And I think we're just so used to doing that, aren't we, that it's, you know, giving people compliments based on it look. And of course it is nice sometimes, but weight weight shouldn't be at the focus of that.
No, it shouldn't. But it's so difficult. It's such a saturated. I sometimes use the term, I say to people, I feel like we're gathering whispers against a storm.
Yeah.
I feel so saturated. So as I mentioned to you before we started recording, I've got 3 kids, and I've got my middle daughter's almost 13 and I've got an almost 11-year-old. We never meant to talk about bodies. We don't talk about weight. I try and talk very neutrally about things, about food, try and do everything that I can.
Yeah.
Still, my 13-year-old said to me earlier, so if you had to rate me out of 10, what would you rate me?
Oh my goodness.
Literally, in those moments, I go, oh my God, where is that coming from? It's almost something that she's seeing on social media.
Yeah, it must
that
be.
That is the least interesting thing about you, Squidge. Sorry, she'd kill me for saying she's called Squidge on here. Oh my God, it's a really good thing. I'm so uncool and she'll never listen to this. It's fine. As a parent, I feel at a loss sometimes, because I think you can do everything you can in the home. And I just pray to God that by osmosis it's going in.
Yeah.
Still.
It must be so hard.
It's everywhere. It is.
Yeah.
It is everywhere. And you can't put them in a bubble. I want to be like, don't let them on the phone. I watched that Netflix social media film. I can't remember what it was called now. And I remember after that, just my husband and I looking at each other going, oh my God, this is awful.
Throw the phones away.
Yeah, no more phones. But that's, it's modern life, isn't it? And you mentioned that, you had a bit of a journey yourself with your relationship with your body and food and exercise. How has that shifted? How would you describe it then and now, and what had to happen for you?
Oh, so it's totally different now. Like yourself, I was in quite a bad place and had some professional help. And I think even when I thought that I'd recovered, so when I was probably, say when I was about 25, I think, because it was kind of all came to a head when I was about 21. When I was about 25, a few years later, and I think I thought that I was so much better. I wasn't. And when I look back now, that obsession with food and exercise, I suppose it just shifted another way into more the fitness industry, so where it was a more acceptable obsession, and where it was more complemented. So I had to kind of, work through that and realise that still wasn't healthy. And then I'm at a point now where I definitely still do, especially through the pandemic, I've definitely found it a lot harder with my body. I felt like I've got to a really good place where I had a great relationship with food, with my body, and I feel like it's maybe just slipped down a tiny little bit over the past year. I think just more time on social media, more time to sit around and think about things where I'm not working, my mind's not busy. And I've gained some weight, like I think most people have over lockdown. And I think I've definitely found it harder this past year. It's the difference now is that I don't act on it. So back then, if I had those kind of thoughts about my body and I disliked what I saw and I found my clothes weren't fitting, I would have thought, right, this is unacceptable. I've lost control. I need to get that control back, and I would have restricted. But now, I have those thoughts for a few minutes, probably every day, and then I think, forget it. Think how far you've come. Think of everything that you've gained and what I'd have to give up to get, back to wherever I think that I sometimes should be. It's a huge difference now. I can definitely, it's the not acting on it, I think, that is the change.
Yeah, and that's amazing to hear. That's wonderful to hear.
And it's really to hear that you're feeling better as well.
And I think it's bringing, as you say, it's that awareness piece, isn't it? It's separating yourself from that little voice that is the voice that, it could be the inner critic, or, in the world of eating disorders, it's called the ED voice that goes, you should, that little voice. Yeah. And when you can bring awareness to it and go, actually, I notice it, but I'm not going to act on it. That's a really wise, it's a beautiful way of encapsulating it, is I don't act on it.
Because I think with a lot of eating disorders, I don't know about yourself, but it was always about control. So I think this year, when everything's felt so out of control, it's tempting to go back to those old ways to try and get a bit of control back. So I think it's just recognising as well that I don't always have to have control, and that being a certain way doesn't give me control,
Absolutely. And the other really valuable thing you said then was when you mentioned, I think about what it cost.
Yes.
And that is so true. Is actually, what is the cost of having that singular goal of looking or weighing a particular thing? And actually the cost is huge. And when you have it back, I don't know about yourself, exactly, when you have that freedom back, that when that anxiety is no longer there and you just eat the ice cream and you haven't even thought about it, I don't ever want to give that up.
No, you're so right. And I catch myself sometimes and think, this is amazing. It'll never get old to me to be able to walk into the shop and just pick up something like a chocolate bar or something and not have to look at the calorie content, or it's just I just don't think that will ever wear off, because after spending so long, in hours in shops checking every little ingredient and calorie, and it's a great feeling, and I could never give that up again. It would never be worth it.
And that really resonates with me, because even 20 years down the line, I still have those moments where I catch myself and I go, oh my God, I don't have to think, it's not part of my life anymore. That's so amazing. And I still kind of have that moment of, wow, I did it. Because when I was in it, I never thought I'd ever get out of it.
No. And I just assumed that this was what everyone else was like.
Yeah.
I knew that I was extreme, but I never imagined that people just ate for pleasure and, went out for dinner and didn't binge. And, I just thought that what I was doing was maybe a bit extreme, but surely everyone that's, healthy has to be having some kind of restriction. But it's not the case, thank God.
Amazing. And I hope anyone who's listening to this who is having their own struggle, this and can hear us say that, recovery is 100% worth it. It is so.
Oh my God. And it's so possible as well. It's so possible.
The other interesting thing you mentioned there, I think, is you said you kind of segued, and I think sometimes it's quite common in eating disorders that we can segue our way out of the eating disorder into like a layer of recovery, right? So I always think about disorders having layers of recovery.
Yeah.
That initial layer can sometimes look like, for people, they go into what we term socially acceptable ways of restricting.
Yeah.
So it might be, veganism or, whatever it might be. And that's, if you're a vegan for ethical reasons, that's absolutely wonderful. But for some, it's a way of transitioning out, isn't it? Or in eating, or as you say, the fitness industry.
Yeah.
So it is so socially acceptable to be restricted, isn't it? And how have you come up against, how's it been, changing that, the way you work in an industry that up to relatively recently still was so obsessed with aesthetic?
Yeah, it's not easy. It's and definitely when I first started, it was about 2 years ago I started working this way. And it was when I first moved to Cornwall, and I didn't know anybody. I was trying to grow a new business, and I found that if you're in that PT circle, and you're not advertising weight loss, people weren't interested. And I found it really hard to build my business, especially from from scratch again here, by not offering transformations and that kind of thing. And I was turning people away when people were saying, can I have some, a diet plan or that kind of thing? I was saying, I'm really sorry, but that's not something that I offer. And I definitely did second guess myself a few times. But I think from other PTs as well, I think it's just being more open-minded and appreciating that, ideally there wouldn't be a market for that. Really, I'd like it if everybody just worked my way, I suppose. But I understand that we're not all the same and everyone has different goals. But I think I found that a lot of PTs, perhaps, and others in the fitness industry weren't very open-minded, and it was just one way or another. And I remember there's somebody, I won't say his name, but there's somebody on Instagram who brought out a book. And you'll definitely know who he is.
I already know who it is. I'll let it out. Is it John?
So I followed him for ages, and I thought, oh my God, I thought he was brilliant. I thought what he was doing was great. And then I suddenly started, it dawned on me, and I was like, oh, he's really fat phobic. He was talking about sleeping with his clients and things like that. And I was thinking, oh God, you know, and I commented on one of his posts one day. Said, I think he'd made, you know, a really sort of fat phobic comment, and I commented, and the backlash I got, I just said something like, I've followed you for ages, really respected you. I don't agree with this that you said, and this is why. Oh my God, yeah, the backlash I got from that was crazy. So many people that were his followers commenting and saying that it's crazy that I'm qualified as a PT, I shouldn't be allowed to work with people, all that kind of thing. And then he did a post the next day about, because I think he'd had a bit of backlash on it, saying about people that didn't agree with him, that are snowflakes, you know. So I think definitely that drives a bit more of a hatred for people working this way as well. And it gives off that belief that we are just encouraging people to be unhealthy.
It's such a massive misinterpretation, and there are two things there. One, this particular influencer has masses of privilege. He comes with a shed load of privilege that allows him to maintain his aesthetic and make money out of it. The second thing is that kind of echo chamber over there that say it's this way and or the highway, actually, in my experience, are really ill-informed.
Yeah.
They just say, well, intuitive eating is what you tell everyone, that they don't have to work out if they don't feel like it, and they can eat all the cake.
Yeah.
And they just simplify it to that. And
Yeah.
they simplify the health at every size movement to literally that. It's no, we're not anti-health. We are pro-health promoting behaviours. We're pro-improving your health. We just don't make chasing a number on the scales the simpler goal. And we look at other biomarkers. We look at, and there's new studies out now. I was listening to the Food Medics podcast, listening to an older episode, and she's got Alan, I can't remember his name. He's a super nutrition science geek. I mean, his brain is so big. I listen to some of his stuff and I think, I'm lost, I've gone. He's so brilliant. But he was saying in one of these latest episodes that some of the data, the studies that are coming out showing the physiological, the metabolic, and the psychological benefits of intuitive eating is really compelling. And he is a man that's done his due diligence. He knows.
Yeah. And I think there will be more and more sort of investigating into that area, hopefully, that will back up, you know, as the movement gets bigger, that will back up what we're saying, because it is frustrating sometimes. And there's definitely times where I think, you know, I want out of the fitness industry. It just gets a bit frustrating, I think, especially with social media, because you can think that it's making so much progress and that they're starting to understand that diet culture is no good for us. And then, you know, you see one post or one comment and you just think, oh my God, you know, it's going nowhere. So yeah, it's very frustrating. But I think I just try and stay in my lane, switch off that outside noise. And I think that my clients, and I'm sure yourself, the people that you work with, they're all the evidence that I need, that the way I work is successful and that it's beneficial, because they're happy and they feel confident and they've got self-esteem's improved, and I just think that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if there's some dickhead on Instagram that thinks we're promoting obesity, you know.
Yeah, we just have to keep gathering those whispers, Carly. That's what we
do. You're so right.
So, you know, now, what would you say is the most important thing to bear in mind when it comes to having a healthy relationship with food and exercise?
I think to not compare yourself to others. So what's healthy for somebody else might not necessarily be healthy for you. And so I know that some people, you know, you have a great relationship with food and the body, and they still go to the gym 5-6 days a week or whatever, and they really love it. And I think that's not me. You know, that isn't healthy for me at the minute. But for some people it might be. And so I just try not to compare myself, I think. And I would recommend other people to do the same. So just, again, just kind of switch off the outside noise and do what feels right for you. I feel like that's a really short answer, isn't it?
No, but it's incredibly true. It is. I think comparison is deadly.
Yeah.
That's very dramatic. But it is, because the minute we compare, and I talked about this in another podcast recently. I read a book called Beauty Sick, and she explains how it's all about body image and how women why we have poor body image, like the history behind it, how it has happened, and how it has been, exasperated by media. And she says in it that beauty, I can't remember if it's Latin or Greek, but the meaning of the word beauty is actually rare, because we didn't see, so it went rare. But the problem is now that we're given these highly often airbrushed, photoshopped, styled, made up, a lot of plastic surgery, a lot of fillers, all of that stuff's happening. So we get this image, this perfected image, but we're saturated with it. So my 13-year-old goes on TikTok or whatever, and she'll swipe, and out of maybe 50 images, how many of those has she been presented with what is actually rare? But because she's seeing it so frequently, she thinks it's normal.
Absolutely. And the filters and all that kind of thing as well. You see these posts, which I think are great, where people show what their actual skin looks like close up, because all we're used to seeing is these, no pores, no blemishes or scars. And it's, when I catch myself thinking sometimes, oh God, and I think that it's not real what I'm looking at, but it's just so hard. And I think, God, if with the journey we've been through, kind of second guessing ourselves sometimes, then how must these poor younger people nowadays feel? I'm so glad I don't have to grow up in that social media world.
I think social media can be wonderful. Like, there is amazing stuff happening on it, and there are amazing people doing amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And I sat with, Amy's going to hate it, I've spoken about her loads on this podcast, but I sat with her recently, and we looked at Instagram.
Yeah.
Encouraged her to follow different accounts that were body acceptance accounts or body neutrality accounts. And when we started changing her feed, and she began to see far more normal bodies.
Yeah.
And I challenged her the other day. I said to her, when we were out, I said, have a look round when we're out today, and I want you to point out to me one person that you see looks like that image that you think is perfect. You said that's the way, I should look. Okay, let's go see if we can, let me know when you see it. And we got to the end of the day, and she went, Mummy, you're right. Everybody looked different. Everyone's body was different. And I went, and it gets sucked into these little boxes in their hands, that this becomes the reality. And that's, I think it's talking about it, it's educating, it's modeling, isn't it? We model for our clients, the language we use, being congruent, walking the talk, as you say, and being really open and honest about it, I think is really important.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree.
How have you seen, obviously you have your own personal experiences, and you mentioned briefly before about clients would come to you and feel apprehensive about weighing in and all of those things, but how do you think diet culture impacts our well-being?
I think it totally messes it up. The diet culture that we're in now, I think, so much of, I've always struggled with anxiety, and I think so much of it was rooted in the way I looked and the way my body looked, and I can imagine that so many people feel the same.
I think we forget, right, that the pursuit of thin, or the pursuit of an ideal body it's like dropping a pebble in a pond, and there are ripples that go out into every facet of our lives. So, you may be, I see it time and time again with my clients. Quite often they come to me, and there'll be individuals who literally don't eat all day. They restrict all day because they think they're being good.
Yeah.
So I only had a black coffee, and I had a date bar for breakfast. And then for lunch, I had a banana and an apple and some oatcakes, because I thought that would be good. And then I didn't eat anything. And then I got home, and suddenly I've eaten a family bag of kettle chips, a bottle of wine, 6 Kit Kats, and then I cooked dinner, because the blood sugars just, they have no control over that anymore. They've just gone, But the way that impacts is that there things like, a number of times I've had clients who, when we get back to eating and balancing our blood sugar and having a really nice steady energy throughout the day and eating on a regular basis, they say things to me like, I didn't realize how much it was affecting my work.
Yeah.
Or how
Oh,
I can concentrate all of a sudden.
yeah.
I really felt present in that meeting, or I'm getting to the end of the day and I'm not absolutely wiped out and I can barely get off the sofa. I was able to go with the kids for a walk around the park, and then they're spending more time with their children because
Yeah.
they've got the energy to do, or they're less frightened to go out for dinner with their friends because they're not sat there looking at the menu going, oh, well, I shouldn't have that, and that's got bread in it, and that's pasta, and they sit there with their piddly enjoyable tomato soup.
Yeah.
Like that was, a social connections get ruined, don't they?
Definitely. Social connections was definitely a big one for me. And I think with my family as well, I think I almost felt like my family was trying to sabotage. I think I thought that they, obviously they just cared and they wanted me to be well, but I think I thought that they wanted me to gain weight and to look awful, and, which obviously isn't true. Well, I think it hurt my relationship with my family, and definitely the social side of things. I would never have gone out for a spontaneous dinner. If somebody had sent me a message and said, "Do you want to come out tonight?" That would have been just complete anxiety for me. Having to go out and it not be sort of planned into my week and my workouts planned around it. And I think it's just a headspace, of constantly thinking about food, constantly thinking about exercise and how you're going to burn it off, how much you need to burn off. And you've suddenly got all this space to think about other things, and
what we could do. And I get on my soapbox about this subject. I think, oh my God, as women, what we could do if we were free of all that chatter in your head, if that didn't take up all that energy of spending your time thinking about how you're going to compensate or what you're going to skip, or that you've got to go, oh, I have to go to the gym tonight even though I'm really tired because, I went out for lunch, or whatever that is. When that is gone, suddenly you can do things like move to Cornwall and set up an amazing new business.
Absolutely. And it's things like, we were just having a lie-in with my husband on a Saturday, and you won't mind me saying this, but he used to call it the regime because, of course he used to laugh at me a little bit. And I had to laugh at myself. I'd get up, on Saturday at like 6 a.m. and I'd go out on a run, I'd go and run like 10 miles, I'd come back, I'd be like, right, I'm cleaning the apartment, and I could only relax and enjoy my weekend when I knew that I'd exercised, when I knew that everything was lined up, So I think it kind of went further than just the exercise. It was all about like everything being clean and everything being arranged. And it's like we've had a bit of a role reversal now, because now we're in Cornwall, he wants to get me up early so we can go out and do nice things, and I'm like, listen, I need to sleep. So it's just that time to be human and just enjoy yourself. And like we said before, I never even in my wildest dreams imagined that was possible. I just thought that was me forever. So it's a nice relief to feel like we're making up for lost time, aren't we?
And it's such a valuable exercise. I think when you sit and reflect on what it took from you, you, and then what you're set to gain, if you're someone listening to this who is in the midst of that. In my recent training, we do one of the exercises they do is they do something called a lifeline. Okay, so you plot out, you look at your weight fluctuations throughout the years and what was happening in your life at the time, and it becomes this big picture in front of you, and it's an incredible piece of work because it's incredibly powerful, because suddenly you can absolutely join the dots. You can see how, when, and why it happened. But before you do that, they ask you to ask the client, when you look back on your life, what do you want to see? People say things like, I want to see that, I had family, I was happy, I was well, I took every opportunity that was presented to me, I travelled, all of these things. And they would say, but none of those things have to do with food, weight, or body shape.
Absolutely.
And it's like that, what when we begin to filter what we can begin to create that space between that voice and actually what we want life to be. And
Yeah.
it can be those things. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think I always used to think as well that again, going back to your worth being related to your weight, I think I just thought that dieting and having what society thought was a nice body was my only thing I was good at. And I think that it was detaching myself from what my body looks like as well, and thinking that that's not who I am, that's not what I'm about. I don't know, it's hard. I think we spend so long thinking that our bodies are just define us, and they really don't. Like you say, it's got nothing to do with. Sorry, there's a dog barking in the background. It's not mine.
Someone plopped himself next to my desk. He's like, I'm so hot. I'm a retriever. It's too hot.
Oh, bless that.
Absolutely. And I think it's that thing of remembering that our bodies they house our soul. That's what they do.
Yeah.
It's not who we are. It's just a thing. It's like putting a coat on.
Yeah. And you can't be good at having a body. It's there's a whole, like you say, it's your soul. That's who you are.
That's who you are and how you live your life. And this thing that we have just helps us go out and do it. But yeah. And how have you found, I'd be interested in asking, how have you found Cornwall obviously is it's such an outdoor life. So much of it's about being connected to nature.
Yeah.
Proximity to the sea.
Yeah.
Do you feel that's helped, having that relationship?
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. I think because we moved from Manchester and we lived in the city centre of Manchester for about 10 years. And I love Manchester. I love Cornwall, but Manchester will always be home. And it's the best city on earth, in my opinion. But Cornwall has definitely given me a new outlook on life. And I think our lifestyle in Manchester, we were going out on a Saturday night a lot more, and I was probably a lot more aware of what I was wearing and what I looked like, and I was surrounded by people that probably a lot more people that did look like what you see on Instagram, and I think it didn't have a negative effect on me. But I think when I look now, Cornwall it's a lot more laid back. I can go into a restaurant in my trackies. And I don't feel so much pressure to have a full face of makeup on all the time. And yeah, definitely being able to just enjoy exercising outside a bit more. That wasn't always such an option in Manchester. Just because, I didn't want to feel safe, and obviously the weather's always awful. I mean, the weather isn't much better here, to be honest. But it definitely feels like there's more options for kind of getting outside and not having to just train in a gym, And I often say that to my clients don't stress about going to the gym however many times a week. Just, do a session with me and get out and walk, get out and swim, and just it does us such good, doesn't it, being outside?
I think that's the other thing. It's helping people reframe that mindset about what movement what counts. Because they do have that kind of especially, I don't know about you, I for a while almost got sucked into whole kind of CrossFit kind of training mentality.
Yeah, see, CrossFit, I'm just not competitive.
Yeah.
So CrossFit there was no danger of me being sucked in by CrossFit, but I can see how people are.
Yeah, but this whole kind of mindset that you have to, if you're not training that hard, it doesn't count. And I think for a long time, even though I thought I had recovered from my eating disorder, exercise for me had to be hard.
Yes, you had to
be hard. I had to sweat, and
and it had to count, like you say.
Yeah, and if it was anything else, well, that didn't count. It wasn't, if I was going to do yoga workout, I'd choose the hot yoga or the yoga sweat. And actually, nowadays, I'm like, my body hurts. I'm doing yin. I'm going to lie down for most of this practice.
Yes, lie down for an hour. Oh, 100% with you there.
Listening to my body and actually what it needs on a daily basis. And find ways of, I remember a few years ago, my friend said to me, what are we going to do for your birthday? And I said, do you know what we're going to do? We're going to go orienteering. I love that kind of stuff. I'm like that friend that all like, we were thinking about going to the pub. And I'm like, no, orienteering. And they're always like, okay.
Oh, no.
I'm on that page. And, but they had a great time. But I love doing that stuff. I love being and realizing that that kind of stuff, it counts, you know, just enjoying it, being outside and walking and
it's sometimes feels so much more beneficial than having a, you know, I think sometimes I crave a sweaty workout. I want to really get out of breath and get my heart rate up. But God, that's probably like once a fortnight now. if that. So instead of forcing myself to do that now, I'll go for a swim. And I still have that little voice in my head. I think, oh, you know, if I go in the sea and it's cold, I think, oh, maybe 5 minutes. But I think, oh, I've enjoyed it. You know, the way I feel from that is so much better than going and sitting on a bike for an hour or whatever, looking at the calories of birds, or, you know, it's so much more fun.
So good for our mental well-being, our emotional well-being, that side of us. Because I say to my clients, stress will cause far more damage to your body than you know, choosing to do online Zumba because it's much more fun than, you know, an hour. It's fine, you know. It's that indeed. So I know you mentioned before you said that you learned more about the Health Every Size movement. How do you bring that into your work now? If anyone who's listening, can you explain a little bit more about what that is?
So Health at Every Size, I suppose it's going against everything that the fitness industry tells you and everything that they tell you at PT school as well. So it definitely took a long time for me to unlearn everything I've learned, you know, over my life and then bring it into a business. So Health at Every Size, I suppose if anyone doesn't know what it is detaching your health from your weight. So it's busting that myth that weight equals health. So a lot of people in larger bodies are stigmatized because of that and are told by doctors that they're unhealthy. And Health at Every Size, I think, is just such a fantastic, I hate the word movement, but it is a movement, isn't it? And I suppose that is a nice word, but it's a movement, and I think it's giving all of those people, you know, permission to exist in the size that they are and what they, you know, and be healthy. The way I've incorporated it into my work, just taking away any focus from weight, and that, it was really hard, and it's, you know, it was easy to take away things like scales and tape measures and stop all that kind of thing. But it's just all that weight-related talk in the fitness industry. You know, people say, I want to tone up my bingo wings. And so it's shifting that thought process into, right, say you want to tone up your bingo wings. How about we turn that into a goal to be able to get 5 full press-ups, you know, because the outcome of that is that you're stronger. You're going to have stronger, you know, you've got more upper body strength. Let's take away the shift from what your arms look like and think about what we can do. So I aim to show my clients what the bodies are capable of instead of them just being there as something to be viewed and something to, you know, pose and look a certain way. It's about putting them into action and doing something with them, seeing what they can do.
I think you articulated that beautifully.
We got there in the end.
It's exactly that. It is, make it detaching. But as you say, it's how you reframe those goals, because that is that mindset, isn't it? That if my arm doesn't look like her arm, I have therefore failed. And realizing they're completely different arms, completely different human beings. And as you said, when we can package it up as in, let's look at what your body can do. And there's so much satisfaction to come from that. You know, from I saw on your just see on your Instagram your journey to your pull-ups, and I was like, yes, because it's
you can see the leg kicking.
You know, that's the thing. Look what my body can do. Look what I did with just keep, you know, resilience, and that's the other thing. It's all those other skills, I think, that the Health at Every Size movement or the non-diet movement or the intuitive movement bring to the party. They bring things like resilience and confidence and self-awareness. There's no diet plan in the world that will bring you self-awareness.
That's so true. And it's just that big sense of belonging, that you're not the only one who doesn't want to conform to that expectation to look a certain way. And I think I'm sure for you as well, it felt like such a relief when that was taken off my shoulders. So I want my clients to feel like that as well. I want them to feel that relief that, oh, I can come in here and she doesn't care what I look like. You know, in the hot weather this week, I've had obviously people coming in shorts and sports bras and that kind of thing that they perhaps wouldn't usually train in. And it's lovely for them to say, you know, I know that you don't care, I know, you know, and they're so right. I'm looking at the way the body moves and what they're doing. I'm not looking at what the body looks like in the clothes. I just want them to be comfortable, you know.
I think it's amazing that you have created a space where your clients feel safe. Because I think
I'm really proud of it.
You should be. You should be really, really proud of that. Because I think one of the biggest barriers to people engaging with health promoting behaviours is they don't feel safe in those spaces.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time as well that I've noticed people think that they can't, you know, people in large bodies think that there's things that they're not going to be able to do, and they think it's because of the size. And, you know, I try and remind them that there's lots of people in smaller bodies that come in and there's things that they can't do. But that is, you know, it's not because of your size. It could just be something with mobility that we can work on. It could be that we need to do the exercise a different way, a modification. And I think that, yeah, so many people are so used to being told that the size is a problem, that it's getting in the way and that it's holding them back, that they believe that. And yeah, I want them to come in and just see that they can do it just like everyone else. It's not the size that's holding them back. It's everyone telling them it is, and making them believe that.
All those external voices, isn't it? And when we can,
absolutely,
the same way we detach weight from worth and health from weight, when we can detach ourselves from those external voices, those things that are as our external validators, freedom comes, doesn't it? That's you're like, you know what, this is I'm doing my life, I'm doing me.
And it's so liberating, and it takes a long time to get there. I think we'll always kind of slip in and out of it sometimes, but yeah, if that's your end goal, it's a nice place to be in, definitely.
Sure, for sure. You mentioned at the beginning of the podcast or earlier on about one of the benefits of moving away from the kind of restriction and the more rigid kind of relationship with food and exercise, which are Saturday lie-ins. And that leads me very nicely onto the subject of self-care. And I'm sure you agree with me that self-care, although, you know, all the lovely, you know, lotions and potions are great some days, but what does self-care mean to you? And how do you kind of build it into your everyday life?
For me, I mean, it probably sounds a bit of a different one, but I find the most therapeutic thing is going home to my husband. And again, he laughs at me about this because I come through the door and he's just there waiting for me to like unload. I just, you know, just talk everything out. And having those people in my life that I really trust, that small circle, and being able to share with them and talk about the things that have stressed me out. And I honestly find that just so therapeutic. And yeah, we laugh because I walk through the door and I'll be like, oh, I tell him all about my day, go on about it for ages. And then I'm like, oh, I feel so much better now. And I'll say to him, how was your day? And I'll go, it was all right. You know, it's just the way I am. He prefers to kind of just keep it in his head. And I'm like, I just have to talk. But yeah, so yeah, I do love a good therapy session with my husband and my mum, having a good chat. And obviously movement, you know, the more conventional ones, I suppose, movement. I think self-care for me sometimes isn't movement though. It's just knowing that I need to rest. Eating food that I love, of course, and that doesn't necessarily mean foods that are deemed to be, you know, healthy. And I love the sea. I've definitely found by living here that is a big part of my self-care is being near the sea. And I think if I haven't been for a swim or I haven't seen the sea for a few days, I start to crave it. And I can't forget my dog as well. My dog, my dog is the best self-care.
Therapy, animal therapy, all day, every day.
Yeah. I honestly think he has chilled me out because I think because he's a pug as well, and he sleeps so much. I think he's taught me to relax, definitely.
Very true. I think talking, having those, being heard, it's a beautiful thing, and that is self-care. And that's the other thing I think we could take away from this chat today, is that, you know, self-care is something that has kind of been hijacked by the beauty industry as a way of selling us more stuff. You know, you can have some self-care in the form of our anti-aging face mask. And getting old is a bad thing according to us. So more money out of you. But yeah, self-care it's that, isn't it? It's those things. It's the things that feed the soul food.
Yeah, definitely. Just the simple things that we take for granted. I think when you really think about them, they can just do us the world of good. It doesn't need to be anything fancy.
And I'm going to ask you my final question, which we ask everybody, and it's always a bit of it lands quite heavily. People are like, whoa, that's a tough one. If you were on top of a mountain and you had the whole world below you and you could tell them one thing, what would you say to them?
Oh, I'd probably go on for days. They'd all leave. It
would have been like, the parking's up, Carly. Sorry, got
do you know, I would just say to just be kind, just be nice to each other. I feel like, especially this last year, and I think social media has caused so many people to just divide. And whatever the subject, there's always one way or the other. And again, in the diet industry, like we talked about, there's no, you know, just nowadays it doesn't seem to be that we can just accept that somebody else has a different opinion and a different take on things. So I think just be nice to each other and just look after each other and look out for each other. And just treat each other how probably, again, just a really simple thing. Just treat other people as you want to be treated. And we're all growing up in this crazy world, aren't we? It's just bonkers. And I don't think our brains are quite equipped for it, with social media and all that side of things. So I think we just really need to look out for each other now more than ever. Yeah.
And having had that massive collective experience that has been the pandemic, you'd hope it would kind of give people a bit of a shake around the shoulders to recognise that we are just one of 7 billion people of this massive thing called humanity. And Earth is a speck of dust in the universe. So you know, getting to grips with Karen on Twitter over something, you know, over mask wearing or whatever, you just think, actually, people, come on, let's...
just chill out, switch off your social media and just accept that somebody has a different opinion.
Exactly. Then and it's not just because you've got a different opinion, you don't need to make sure they've heard it. That's the thing.
No, absolutely. Just get on with it and just go and
out and be the
light.
Your dog. Go walk the dog, go look at the trees, go download on your lovely husband and say,
how
the day was.
Poor Johnny.
He sounds like a good egg if he's, you know.
You must be thinking, oh my God, her poor husband, like it.
Oh God, no. I'm thinking, my husband does this. I think, blah, 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 blah. I'm a talker, right? You probably gathered by now, by the end of this podcast, I like to talk, and I'm the same. I'm a downloader, and I need to get it all off my chest. I need to say, this happened and that happened. Blah, blah, blah. And I look at him and I go, wait, were you listening? To the first part? And then he's
I definitely think most of the time he's probably tuned out. But as long as he nods his head every now and then, it makes me feel better.
Exactly. Just nod, just go and just give me the opportunity to go.
That'll keep me happy.
And finally, Carly, where can people find you and learn more about your work?
Well, I am currently in the process of making a website, but you can find me on Instagram. It's just Carly Lightbown, PT. So everyone always spells it with an R, but it's Lightbown, not light brown. So Carly Lightbown.
Lightbown.
Honestly, the amount of time I spend spelling out the names of people. So yes, that's where I am. And come say hello.
Will do. And it has been a pleasure and a privilege. And thank you so much for coming and melting with me for the last hour.
Oh my God, I'm going to go and stick my head out the window.
I'm going to go for an hour.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you're able to take something of value away from today's episode. Perhaps one small action you can put into practice today. If you are enjoying Reframe, then please do subscribe and rate the podcast, as this helps us reach more lovely listeners. As always, here at Reframe Club, we are rooting for you.